Today we celebrate the Feast of the Ascension, or the translation of Jesus to heaven. Historically, in the Greco-Roman world, emperors and heroes renowned for their great deeds were taken to the heavens and exalted as deities. Such was the tradition of the time. It was expected of holy and great persons, indicating divine approval of them. In the scriptures, specifically in Acts 1, 2-12, and 2, 33-36, and also in Hebrews 1, 3-4, this act by God acclaimed the vindication of Jesus over his enemies, as well as his enthronement at the right hand of God. Some versions of this story might simply mean his descent into death, followed by his vindication and ascent to God. Jesus' ascension was originally interpreted as God's action on his behalf, granted honor to cancel out the shame of the cross. Later, the story was adapted to depict Jesus as a divine figure who ascended under his own power. Since the ancients pictured God as a figure seated on a throne in heaven, it was necessary for Jesus to ascend to that same place of glory. The Ascension is the final event in the visible ministry of Jesus on earth. While this feast was once thought to be the day that Jesus took his seat at the right hand of God, presently it is more often interpreted metaphorically as an expression of the enduring relationship between the transcendent Jesus and the community he left behind. Today, we are that community. After the Ascension, Jesus was no longer present among his followers in a physical sense, but paradoxically, the ascended Jesus is forever present in the world. He is with us always. 2 weeks ago, Gary preached on Jesus' words, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." When I was researching this homily on the Feast of the Ascension, I came across some information I'd like to share with you. It pertains to the way, the truth, and the life. It also pertains to the excommunication of Father Roy Bourgeois, who is suffering expulsion from his Maryknoll community, as well as excommunication by the Vatican. His crime, as you all know, was questioning the role of women in the church, a matter of conscience for him, a matter of truth, the way, the truth, and the life. What I found in my reading were comments on both the First or Old Testament and the Jewish scriptures. The Torah contains the narrative and laws found in the first 5 books of the Bible. The Talmud is another holy book and an accepted source of theological wisdom. The Talmud recorded rabbinical interpretation of the basic laws of Judaism. But, and this is the interesting part, it recorded not only the general opinions of the majorities of rabbis in any given period, but it also preserved arguments and opinions of those rabbis who held minority positions of dissent as well. I did not know that, so I wondered why they would bother. The rabbis wrote that they had recorded alternative opinions because they believed that as time went by, they might come to see that it was those who held another position who, in the end, were more correct than they were. Now that is dangerous unselfishness indeed. We all know that in our church, it was all about traditional authority, and indeed, it is still all about authority. No challenge or dissent was allowed, nor is it yet today. The only changes to social doctrine or official teachings or to dogma are made by doctrinal development by the magisterium, encyclicals issued by the Pope, or documents like papal bulls. While every dogma is a doctrine, not every doctrine is a dogma. However, the formal rejection of a dogma is an act of heresy. Ask Martin Luther or Galileo, whom the church forgave only 2 years ago. So-called heretics who were declared martyrs centuries later. In more recent times, Dorothy Day, who denounced the disenfranchisement of women, suffered this humiliation, as did Mary Ward, who only wished to establish another type of religious order, or one of my most venerated saints, Edith Stein, who denounced Hitler and perished in Auschwitz. To hold a truth other than the official one is dangerous. It should carry a warning sign. Behavior has consequences, never mind your conscience. Perhaps we might take a moment to consider the wisdom of the Talmud, because Father Roy Bourgeois might be found to have spoken a minority wisdom that may be recognized to be true someday in the hopefully not too distant future. We need to respect devout, sincere Catholics who have a broader horizon, an inspired vision, and who see clearly now, even if it seems a revolutionary interpretation of the gospel to some in authority right now. Surely this is the way, the truth, and the life. God bless you all. And we curse all Italians and their descendants for all eternity? Hopefully not, because hatred is the antithesis, the absolute opposite of the powerful and compassionate last prayer by Jesus. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:34. Additionally, Pope John Paul II stated in 1980, in all this, it is not only a question of correcting a false religious view of the Jewish people, which caused in part the misunderstandings and persecution in the course of history, but above all, a question of dialogue between the two religions. Recently, several theologians have commented that Pope Benedict has issued statements suggesting the only path to God is through exclusive Roman Catholicism, with more than a hint of anti-Judaism. Part of that we might expect, but part of it is very serious. We cannot turn back the hands of time, and hopefully we should not. Perhaps it's time for us to join hands with our Jewish sisters and brothers and celebrate the spirit of Passover and Easter together as we share a biblical history and the worship of the one true God of Israel together. As Christians, we are so blessed. Lent is almost over and soon it will be Easter. Good Friday will resonate with our own struggles and the triumph of the human spirit, a story we are all familiar with because we realize and give thanks that the crucifixion of Jesus plus his faith continue to give us courage and hope in our own lives. The Lord will be with us always in spirit, love, and compassion. Like Mary Magdalene, like Peter, like others, we ourselves are redeemed. We are washed clean of sin. It will be a celebration because the life and death of Jesus revealed the constancy of God's loving presence. Because of Jesus, we can envision that living in love offers eternal connectedness of living forever with God. We believe that we shall live in spirit and light because of the sacrifice of Jesus. We are joined forever to Christ in this extraordinary way. It will deepen our belief that access to eternal life may not depend on just calling ourselves Christian, or even depend on professing any particular creed, but rather that we share access with all people of goodwill who live in love, because we are all God's people. Perhaps while we worship Christ, it is Jesus and his message of love and compassion whom we should follow in our thoughts and in our words, and most of all, in our deeds. God bless.